All right, we're a couple minutes in, and we'll go ahead and start. We'll keep admitting people as they log in. But I want to say as we begin, quick introduction. My name is Eric Moss. I'm my professional roles. I'm the current director of communications for the Office of Minority Affairs and Diversity at the University of Washington. My PRSA role is I am the incoming 2025 board president for PRSA Puget Sound chapter. I am thrilled that everyone is here with us today. It's so exciting to see so many people interested in a PRSA Puget Sound program. Um, a little bit of housekeeping before we begin. Um, when we begin the program, I will mute all of the microphones except for Jackie and Mike. That way they have the floor without interruption. If for some reason you unmute yourself, please remember to keep an eye on your mute. It can be distracting to folks with other microphones running at the same time. We want to focus on Mike and what he has to share with us. Other piece of housekeeping for PRSA Puget Sound is I want to, as we have this call with so many folks and folks in the region or across the country, actually, what I want to say is PRSA Puget Sound is open to folks joining us through volunteerism. We have a lot of opportunities in the 2025 year for the Puget Sound chapter for volunteers, ranging everything from 2 hours a week up to more intensive volunteership if you're available, for between 2 and 10 hours a month, I should say. So if you're interested in volunteering for membership, for PRSSA, for communications, for programs, you can reach out to us through info at prsapugetsound.org, and that'll come directly to me, and I'd happy to chat with you about volunteer opportunities. It's a great way to be involved in PRSA and to give a little bit back without a huge time commitment of board service if that's something you're not ready for or interested in. That's my housekeeping. What I'll do now is I will introduce our PRSA colleague, Jacque Coe, and she will take it from there. Jacque Coe is a communications and PR strategist with 25 years experience in communications public relations. She is accredited APR and a PRSA Fellow. Jacque is a former president of the PRSA Puget Sound chapter and has been involved nationally on a lot of levels, helping PRSA advance our mission and mentoring countless folks in our profession. Jacque is a wealth of knowledge in her own right, and I want to extend gratitude and thanks to Jacque for bringing this program to us to share with all of you. And with that, I will turn it over to Jacque.
Thanks, Eric. I appreciate that. And part of, anybody that knows Jacque Coe knows that I'm a big evangelist for PRSA. I don't know where my career would be without PRSA. I joined PRSA years ago when I came out of King Television and went into communications. And it's just only helped my career. I became accredited, et cetera. It's just been great. And so part of being part of PRSA is that PRSA is a community. You meet so many people, and through PRSA and other areas, you meet great people like Eric and Mike. And so I reached out to Mike and asked if he would be willing to do this program specifically for free so that people in government, students, et cetera, anybody who is not a PRSA member could experience the type of quality programming that PRSA offers members. So, and I work at the Department of Ecology. I have my own consultancy, Jacque Coe Communications on the side, but I'm also teach at the University of Washington and do want to acknowledge that my PRSSA, I'm a faculty advisor for PRSSA, and my president, McKenna Schwab, is on the call today. Thank you, McKenna. Do want to go ahead and just say a little bit about PRSA, just so that folks on the call are aware. Go ahead and put this up. And let's see if I don't botch this. So PRSA is about advancing the profession and the professional. As I mentioned, it's the leading professional association for communications and public relations professionals in the nation. PRSA is a community of professionals that provide everything from ethics education, advocacy, professional development, connection. So I have colleagues from literally all across the country I never would have met otherwise who have been close personal friends, colleagues, and share information through PRSA. Members span everything from education, PR agencies, government, the private sector, nonprofit, et cetera, independent practitioners. And PRSA serves to provide them with resources to make them better professionals. So it includes everything from professional development, job banks, awards, et cetera, conferences, and programs like this. There is a special going on in December. If you're interested in joining PRSA, all you have to do is go to prsa.org, and they'll waive your initiation or your reinstatement fee with a promo gift, gift 24. And so you can do that if you're interested in joining. And of course, you would also consider joining the local Puget Sound PRSA chapter. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen and get on to our program. I was interested in this program because I know Mike and know that Mike is a gifted speechwriter. And great speechwriters use words to embed words and the message of the speaker into the minds of their audiences, sometimes forever. The words of the speechwriter, through the speaker, they can inspire, they can motivate, and they can move people to action. So they're actually quite powerful. That said, speechwriting is not easy. And people like Mike make it look very easy, which is why I was so interested to see if Mike might be willing to share some of his tips and tricks and interests. I do want to go ahead and take a quick moment just to kind of share with you some of the power of the speechwriter and take a little bit of excerpts of some of the quotes of Governor Jay Inslee and his specifically from his State of the State address earlier this year. The governor said, "We will not relent to our greatest challenges. We will not go backward. This is the evergreen state and the ever forward state. And we're going ever forward on our evergreen agenda. Climate change is our present, but climate collapse does not have to be the inevitable. The legislature put us on a clear and necessary path to slash greenhouse gases by 95% by 2050. We will stay the course. Any delay would be a betrayal of our children's future. We're on the razor's edge between promise and peril." Those are words that stick in an audience's mind. And crafting quotes such as, "We can all be heroes, joining together on a grand mission to save those living on this little blue planet." It's writing like that that helps advance an organization through the channel of an amazing speaker. And that's who Mike has been working with. Mike Faulk has been Governor Jay Inslee's speechwriter and press secretary for the last 5 years. A graduate of the University of Alabama, Faulk spent 12 years as a newspaper journalist moving around the South, the Midwest, and Central America before finally adopting Washington State as his second home. Faulk also dabbled in stand-up comedy for 2 years before joining the governor's office, and apparently had a big birthday dinner yesterday. And so he wanted to personally apologize for looking bloated. Mike, welcome, and thank you so much for giving this opportunity to all these folks for free. I think it's a wonderful opportunity, and so thank you very much. Mike?
Yeah, thank you, Jackie, and thanks everyone for joining. So yeah, I was a journalist. Well, I'm originally from Alabama. You know, my passions were like current affairs and writing. What was I going to do with that as a youngster? Oh, okay, I'll go into journalism. So I did that for 12 years, and I guess this, I feel like, is like the best visual illustration of my transition. Here's me in 2014 at the Yakima Herald Republic. I had a little show there that would air on the ABC affiliate where I'd interview either newsmakers or other journalists. And my future boss, Jamie Smith, brought Jay Inslee down. And here I am. Before I had a beard, there he is with more hair on his head. And then we go to 2023. I thought there was some symmetry in this screenshot from a TVW coverage of a bill signing. This was, he had signed a bill repealing some old Tim Eyman initiative, and if you've watched the Governor ad lib any over the last 12 years, he loves to try to jab people when he can, and he made some joke about chairs. I can't remember what his joke was, but this was a Tim Eyman bill, and he made a joke about chairs, if you know the background there. And he saw me in the back of the room and saw that I had kind of a nonchalant reaction to his joke. And this is us on, nobody would know this on TVW, but this is the conversation we were having. He called me up to the front, paused the bill signing to ask what could have been better about his joke and why I wasn't laughing as much at it. So that's my visual illustration of that. You know, journalism, I have a lot of respect for the industry, and I think my background has really helped me as a press secretary. But it's hard. The industry is changing in a lot of ways, and I was among the many who kind of have realized that a transition was necessary to a new career, and it was a hard decision. One of which was, you know, journalists have very high opinions of themselves and the duty of the work that they do. And, you know, if you're going to the other side, how does that affect, you know, my integrity or who I am? Like so many people, their jobs define who they are. So what does this say about me if I'm not this journalist that I've spent so much time kind of identifying as? And really quickly, you learn that in any of these jobs, integrity still matters. It might even be more important than it was when you were a journalist. And so it's been a big learning curve. You know, I had never written a speech right before I got this job, and then was thrown into the COVID pandemic. And so it was a real sink or swim situation. But I've learned a lot. It's been so gratifying, and it wound up being my most favorite, best job I've ever had. So, and
Sorry, Mike, folks are saying they can't see the screen transitions or the new slides. Or
can you see?
It looks like it's about 50-50. Some folks can say they can see it, some say they can't.
Okay.
Okay. So can everyone see a slide of Mike and the governor?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. It looks like
sounds like.
Yep.
Looks like we're good.
Yep.
Okay.
Great.
Let's keep going.
Sorry to interrupt.
Okay. So let me get my place back here. So yeah, this job ends in 5 weeks. I'm not sure yet what I'm doing, but it's been a great ride, and I've got one more state of the state that we're already working on, and I'm looking forward to it. So things I've learned in the job. I was thinking of this meme that always comes out every time this year. If you're cold, they're cold, right? Well, if you're bored, they're bored is kind of the way I think about this. I don't know if you're seeing my slide, but that's, of course, a real picture of me on the couch looking bored, wishing I could write more interesting speeches. So you've got to, you know, think about what distinguishes a speech from any other kind of document you're writing, and you have to be in a writing mindset. This is a creative pursuit. But like all work, if you're distracted or you're tired or you're stressed, you're not going to perform as well as you could, and that especially is true when you're trying to be in a creative mindset. So you want to be present when you're thinking about what the goal of the speech is. You want to really think about the significance of the words you're choosing. It is not a crime to pull out a dictionary or a thesaurus and really sit there and think about the words, stew on their meaning, not rush through the process. And if the speech you're working on feels like busy work, you're in trouble. This is not something that is going into a folder. It's going to a crowd. You need to be visualizing how this is going to come across to people. And, that can be different if you're not writing a speech all that often. Maybe that's not a problem. It's more of a problem for people kind of in my position where you're writing multiple speeches a week, usually on vastly different topics for vastly different audiences, and you get a little tired. So you've got to, when you're under the pressure like that, you've also just got to make space to what is, and it's different for everybody, but what puts me in a creative mindset where I'm able to write something that, doesn't that I feel like it may or may not be a failure before it goes up there, where I feel really confident that people are going to respond to it. Another thing on this is not just about your speaker, but about your speaker's role in the lineup. If you have a lot of speakers, an audience can really check out if people are hitting on the exact same notes. So before the speech, you also just want to find out what the other speakers are doing, how many of them are there, and make sure that your person is playing a unique role in this process. And it's not just for your speaker, it is for the audience's sake. They will be completely checked out if you don't, if it's just the same thing over and over again. So get to know your audience. Why are they there? What mood are they in? What inspires them? You can't write every speech in the same tone. It matters. You need to adjust your voice and your executive's voice for each event. And that's why you ask yourself these questions as you begin the writing process. Other things that I've noticed as both an audience member and someone in an audience is they rarely want to hear the speakers talk about themselves. They want the speaker to be some kind of a vessel for a message that inspires. So you can't just fill the speech with all these great things that you've done. You have to talk about these things in a way that connects with your audience and makes your speaker empathetic to them. And so, you don't want to make them look like they're not just getting up there to demonstrate their vast knowledge or understanding or how impressive they are. You're getting up there to tell an audience that you care and to show them what you're doing about something. You want to avoid cliches, tangents, run-ons, self-praise, buzzwords. Don't try to sound trendy. And I think most importantly, keep it short. In my case, I try to keep most speeches to no more than 5 minutes. And we get a lot of speaking requests here in the governor's office, and quite a few of those requests are for like 10 to 20 minute speeches. And on 95% of those, I say no. We're doing 5 tops, and that's not just because we have to write a lot of speeches and do a lot of events. That is for the audience's sake primarily. People, even if they think they want it, I guarantee you they do not want someone to just go on and on. I saw some flyer for some political rally somewhere where like one of the big points they tried to emphasize on this flyer was there are more than 20 speakers booked for this event. And I thought that is like the fastest way to drive people away from an event, to be like there's an endless list of speakers. People like speeches, but they want them to serve a specific purpose and not just go on and on. Your speaker is not a band. Your speaker is not an Oscar-winning movie. They are there to connect and leave people feeling like they've learned something, but also wanting more. You never want them to be tired of your Yeah. So another thing I've learned is that, these really aren't, and as a writer coming from journalism or mostly just writing things kind of for myself or in my own voice, I had to learn that these aren't your speeches. You don't, you only have so much of a say in this. It's a collaborative process, and the priority is figuring out their voice and their vision. You can't, and in their own capacities in front of different kinds of crowds, because again, no two crowds are the same, and you have to figure out your speaker's best talents in front of each crowd. You also want to just get to know your executive personally, and that's a lesson for executives too. The more open and collaborative you are with your speechwriter, you'll be better. It's just a mutual symbiotic thing. So get to know them, their own personal preferences, their interests, their dislikes, their likes. Go if it's the first time you're writing for somebody, go look at other speeches or other public appearances they've made, and see, identify their strengths yourself, and go from there. I'm fortunate, I think, to work for an executive who is very collaborative and is very open, but at the same time has a very good idea of exactly who he is. He knows he's he's very open about what he likes and what he doesn't like, and and I think sometimes that can be a bit daunting for people who have a specific vision. But if you just accept it and internalize it, you can make that a huge strength in what you do. So the writer's job, in my opinion, has always been to identify the speaker's strengths and bring out the best version of those strengths. For example, I would never include like a pop culture reference that didn't come later than 1970 in one of Jay Inslee's speeches, because that is his reference. He doesn't know anything. And in fact, if you refer stuff that like came out before he was even born, he somehow like knows a ton about that. I don't know. The guy watches a lot of Turner Classic Movies. So each speaker is different, and that's so bringing out the speaker's strengths and bringing out the best version of their strengths. So you're not trying to change their voice or their personality. You're trying to just find what's best about them and bring it to the surface. And that's really my philosophy with any kind of, when I'm dealing with like anybody's writing, not just speaking, but if I'm editing someone else's editorial or copy or what have you, I think it's a mistake if you're in the mindset that your voice is better than anybody else's just because you're a speechwriter or a comms professional. My voice is not better than anybody else's. I do believe that I can help make anyone's own voice better. And I think that is the best, most successful approach to authenticity in a speaker when they're in front of a crowd. It needs to be something that also makes them comfortable, loose, and have good body language. And that's another thing about working on speeches is sometimes it really helps to study your speaker's body language and give them some feedback on that. If they're standing around with their hands in their pockets, they look nervous, indecisive, uncertain. Just posture, comfortability go a long way in getting your message across. And the other thing, I kind of referenced this earlier, is to be creative, which means kind of putting yourself out there a little bit in how you approach the work. And that also will open you up to criticism, because when you're creative, not everybody is going to understand your creative vision. And it's also possible that your creative vision could be a lot better. So you want to take criticism well, you want to accept the feedback, and you also want to engage like constructively to get compromise on any philosophical differences, because again, it's a collaborative process. I, I'm also I'm in the governor's office. We remain very busy through the end of the term. So if you hear any background noise, that's what's going on. So this is a little bit of an idea of what. So this is not specific to all speech writing, but I just wanted to give you an idea of how it works, of how these events work in our office. And I assume there's similarities in other big organizations. But I didn't just fall out of a coconut tree here in front of you all. This was scheduled. Jacque and the organization worked really hard to set it up and invite people and get everybody here. And similar with our shops, people work together to make events happen and make them successful. So we have these three departments. One is communications, that does the media relations, photo, video, audio, social equipment. We deal with media, we make contacts, we establish relationships, we make sure people have as much information as we can get them ahead of time. Outreach and scheduling, they make sure that people are available and get places when they say they're going to. We connect with hosts, work on the logistics, the security run through with the state patrol, and the run of show to get the list of the other speakers, the other topics, understanding where our executive fits in the lineup. And then you work with the policy shop as well. They understand the subjects you're talking about. They have a deep experience with the stakeholders as well as the issues, and you're normally dealing with topics in your speeches that need to be fact checked, and they are your best source. They have the bead what's going on. So all of these departments work together, and it's not just the writer trying to come up with some pretty words. It's everybody's working together. Now all right. So some examples of speeches. 3 months into my job here, which was my first job as a speechwriter in March of 2020, I was asked to write the governor's live address to the state announcing the COVID lockdowns, the stay home, stay healthy order. I also, my wife and 6-month-old still had not yet moved to Olympia. They were 3.5 hours away in Yakima. So in the middle of all of the pandemic setting in, I was also driving back and forth across White Pass every weekend between Olympia and Yakima so I could see my wife and baby. A lot was going on in the world and everybody's personal lives. We all have stories. There's a lot of public uncertainty, speculation, anxiety leading up to this. Was he going to do it? When was he going to do it? Strong opinions on every side from communities about whether or not this should be, what kind of action should be done. I think we're still living with some of the consequences of people's very strong feelings about what should or should not have been done. I think we still see that a lot in our politics today. And the speech had hundreds of thousands of viewers live, so many that it crashed the TVW website when people were trying to stream it. I remember the day before he gave it on a Sunday, I came in, I got back from Yakima, went to a convenience store, got like a box of Cheez-Its, and came to my desk and stayed up late at night here in the Capitol building writing this address. So the goal was, to show the audience that for a speech like this is to show the audience you comprehend the weight of the moment and give them clarity about what's next. And there was a Walt Whitman quote that I included in here, and that I've actually included in a couple speeches since then. The speech obviously needed an emotional connection, and just surveying the field, it seemed like most people, no matter where they felt, were afraid that whatever action was taken they would somehow be forgotten or left behind, and they had a lot of anxiety about what was coming and what was next, whether it was their health, their jobs, their businesses, their everything. And so this quote from Walt Whitman's Song of Myself, "Be of good cheer, we will not desert you," occurred to me because of a moment in my life a few months before I took the job. My dad was in hospice, and my siblings were taking turns visiting him. He died 5 years ago this week, actually. And my sister was there reading Song of Myself to my father while he was there in hospice, and came across this quote and wrote it up on the dry erase board in his hospice room. And so it was something that had like profound meaning to me. And then just a few months later, this moment where I was thinking about people being worried about what the pandemic would do and what the state's response would do, that just sang to me, and I threw it in there, and it was maybe the most well-received part of the speech. It got a lot of discussion afterwards. So, it's good. This is part of the creative process, at least for me, is to do some of your own self-reflection, and put yourself in that place of where people just want some kind of reassurance. And so very proud of that. And then after Trump won again, and we went, the governor went to the United Nations Climate Conference last month, I thought, this is a pretty good place to use this quote again. So I threw that into another speech, and again, well received. Thank you, Walt Whitman. So this year's State of the State from January, run through the tape. This was, the title itself is another example of just being collaborative with your executive. That was something that he, in one of our first meetings to talk about what the State of the State was going to be like, that this was going to be the last policy agenda that he would actually be here for to push through, whereas this last final one is going to be more of a farewell speech. We're not, he'll have a budget and some policies, but he's not going to be around to drive them. So this was the last State of the State where it was really trying to set the tone and get his final major policy agendas through. And in our first meeting, he talked about of a story something his father used to say as a track coach, to run through the tape, just keep going. Don't slow down or let up when you get to the finish. Just keep running right through it. And so I just said, okay, that's it. That's the title. That's the theme. Thank you. First meeting. We're done. And that also, I think, has really all year, it's just kind of it's been a mantra around the office and state government ever since. I hear run through the tape all the time, ever since then. And it wasn't my idea, but as a speechwriter, I recognized the resonance of what he was saying to me, and I locked it down and put it in. That diagram I showed about all the stuff that comms and outreach and policy and scheduling all do together. This is like the Olympics of that process, because it involves so many people. You've got every state elected in the building. You've got the galleries full. You've got all of this ceremony and logistical coordination going on. And the people you see on the slides here are people that we incorporated into the speech. It's, the part of the state of writing it is you're thinking inclusively about bringing the whole state together and trying to find stories and messages that, you know, cross boundaries and find harmony with the way everyone is thinking about everything. And one of the best ways to do that, to bring a policy vision to life, is through the stories of real people who actually benefit from state policies. And so that's what we did. We brought a lot of people in last year specifically because it was the last big policy one. But these people, I still love these stories to this day. In the top left corner, that's Sheena and John Wilson. John was diagnosed with cancer. They didn't have insurance. Their health costs were going to be $3,000 a month, but they had the state's public option, which the governor helped pass, that cost them $108 a month. Boom. State policy told through real stories, real lives that are changed. Similarly, at the top right there, you've got Pasco police officer Claudia Fuentes. She was only able to become a police officer because we funded new regional police training centers. Cadets used to have to drive all over the state for these trainings and make accommodations away from families and everything else. Super inconvenient, disincentivized getting more officers. So we invested in that, and here, legislature, here is someone we can show you whose life was actually changed and who's making their community safer because you did this. In the bottom left, we have Star Draper. We had the state right-of-way initiatives that got people out of homelessness encampments and didn't just shuffle them to the next corner, actually got them services, got them housing, treatment, job training, temporary housing to lead to permanent housing. Star Draper there is an excellent example of why we did that program and its success, and why the legislature should keep investing in it. However, they didn't give us nearly as much as we needed for it, unfortunately. And then in the bottom right is Elisa Garcia and her daughter Jasmine. Elisa is one of 32 farm worker families in Yakima County that got free rooftop solar on their homes through a state program funded by the legislature, and it brought their energy bills down to zero. So these are, so you want to, when you're talking about your vision, if you can bring it to life and remind people that we're not just a bunch of politicians in a room, that everything that we do here does go out into society and it's going to make a difference for better or worse. So that was the goal here. It's my favorite part of working on State of the State, is just getting to go find people and their stories. And this is stuff that inspires. Now there's stuff that doesn't inspire. I did not, in any of my speeches, write the word miscreant. But there it is. The governor was a bit loose-lipped and acerbic with his view on things at a meeting, and the anti-cap and trade crowd latched onto it. And you know, I think, like, so I want to say this the right way, but sometimes you choose the wrong words as a speechwriter, and that's your problem. And sometimes your executive chooses the wrong words, and that's their problem. Don't blame yourself. Don't get mad at them when this happens. You got to help them move on from it. But, you know, part of clearing the air when we have a moment that upsets people is you've got to, you know, own up to the words you choose and just move on. These are all just moments in time. None of them are defining moments by any stretch. And, you know, the politics of this, of course, is that we know who, you know, anybody who actually followed this knows exactly who the miscreants are that Jay Inslee is referring to. You look at the people who bankrolled the effort to repeal cap and trade, those top 5 funders that they would list at the bottom of every commercial. Those are the miscreants. He's not talking about the 38% of voters that wanted to repeal it. But of course, that is what certain interests went and did. And it's a pretty easy message to what's not the truth is a pretty easy message to sell in a moment like that, where people are already ready to just kind of be angry about something, and you've just gone and proven what they already believed, which is that you had this low sort of imperious view of them. So even if that's not what was meant, we always have to be, this is a great example of just, regardless, being careful of the words you choose when you're out there in public. And that's it. I promised a section, we can get to the Q&A.
Yeah,
There wasn't
absolutely.
a section about humor, but I did try to trickle humor through it.
And I have a question right off the top, but Eric, what's the process for Q&A?
Jacque, we'll start with your question. If folks have a question, you can either put it in the chat, or since we have a little bit of time, you can use the participant option and raise your hand, and I will moderate and call on folks as they come through, and I will keep an eye on the chat for folks who may drop a question in there. But Jacque, we'll start with your question.
Yeah, and it's probably best if people throw their question in the chat to give Mike a chance to see it, take a look at it, etc.
Absolutely.
And then we can go ahead and unmute them. So, Mike, I am intrigued. Thank you so much. Great presentation. Interesting to hear some of the nuances behind these speeches. And one of the things that I've been so impressed about is those moments in your speech that where it is the one line that has tremendous impact and connects with the audience and pulls what I think you said, the weight of the moment and the clarity of what's next, such as the stay home, stay healthy speech. Is that the step number one to take a look and decide what is the number one thing that we want to drive home with this speech? I mean, because focus and clarity are important, and it seems to me in the things that you've written, whether it's a quote from the governor in a post, of which you've drafted many of those, or a speech, it's those passages, often a one single sentence, that have the greatest impact and pull it all together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those, and you normally find those lines by, considering three questions to boil them down. One is, why is the speaker here? What has the speaker done that is relevant to the interests of the group? And what is something that maybe the audience wants, but you're going to be real and say that, maybe this is not something I can give you right now. But yes, and Jay Inslee personally is very big on like that take-home message. He always wants to know, what is the take-home message? What can I say that's going to end up in a headline? That was not what his thinking when the word miscreant wound up in a headline, but that's usually what he wants. So I don't know if I totally answered your question, but
you did. It goes back to those three questions that you mentioned, and that brings the clarity and the focus of the point you're trying to get across. So it looks like Andrea McMakin out of the Mid-Columbia PRSA chapter has a question. Eric, do you want to go ahead and unmute Andrea and she can ask it?
Sure. Or if folks are popping the questions in there, I'll just read it for them so we can make through this pretty quickly. And Jacque, I can go through the list here. There's some other questions in there as well. So the question from Andrea is, in a public forum where there's an audience Q&A after the speech, how do you prepare the governor to address the questions, especially potentially hostile questions?
So this is an area where I've been fortunate because, again, the governor has been someone who's been in politics for a very long time. He's been in front of many audiences. He's very comfortable already in these positions. But the biggest thing is, and it goes back to that little pie chart or Venn diagram that you provide background briefings. It's not just a briefing about the speech. We have briefing memos that go with these speeches that include all of the relevant background about issues that we know are going to come up. It's not a foolproof process. Sometimes there is stuff completely out of left field that's not anticipated, and then you just hope for the best as you're sitting there watching it. But he's got a great talent for this, so it's often not an issue. But you want to work with subject matter experts, preferably, on putting together a really strong briefing memo, so they have all the relevant information on an issue and are able to boil it down into quick talking points. And then as far as hostile questions, or a hostile audience, to me, that's where like really subtle humor is helpful. It can't be too overt, or maybe you look, condescending or like you're above them or something, but it helps to embrace a little bit of self-deprecation. A little bit of humility goes a long way, especially if an audience is hostile, they're expecting you to have a really bad reaction to whatever, they want this to get feisty. And the best thing you can do is keep a cool head and not take it personally, not get into a tit for tat back and forth. I've also thought about this as sort of your, like what is your center of gravity, or what's that orbital thing where you want to you don't want any of that to distract from the reason you're there. So whatever's going to get you back to that place mentally where you're just back on message and it hasn't knocked you off your axis, that's the goal.
That checks out pretty well. I think that also your answer also answers Carla Platz's question, which was, what are your recommended best practices for prepping your speaker? You kind of covered that in that answer there. I'm going to bunch a couple of these together here, but there's one that from James Pauling, which is he's seen the governor take extensive notes at groundbreaking or public events or presentations where the governor's not the first speaker. What guidance have you provided to the governor on how to observe or take notes during this time frame before he speaks?
So it's a collaborative process, and Jay Inslee is an ideas man. He has ideas, and they come to him often. And so when you see him doing that, that is absolutely him sitting there processing what's going on and adjusting on the fly. That's what's happening. So it's not, so, I've never given him advice that said, okay, while you're sitting there waiting to talk, take some notes, listen to them. That's just always been his process. It's a good one.
I can appreciate that. I work for an executive who's usually the last to speak in a keynote style, and he will also take notes on his script or his remarks and incorporate those so he's not redundant, not repeating things. I appreciate working for someone who has that ability to adjust on the fly. We've got time for a couple more questions here, and I'm going to group. There's couple of them I can group together, but we'll ask one more technical question about your presentation, and it's how you balance sharing key policy issues while still highlighting program recipients and community stories. So it's that balance of sharing mission, sharing the policy initiatives, but also keeping it centered on the recipients and community that are the benefactors of these policies.
Yeah, and I think that goes to a pretty foundational philosophy on writing in general, whether it's a speech or any other kind of writing, which is show me, don't tell me. Um, the recipients and the community stories, that is you showing them the policy issue and how it's playing out. You want to focus on that. Um, you want those stories to lead or be more out in front than the policies themselves. And when you hit on the policies, you want to be very pithy about it. You want those sentences to be as short and sharp as they can be. I'm in favor of dedicating more time to the people and the communities and the experiences they're having that illustrate these issues, and not as much copy on the actual policy itself. Be as to the point as you can when it comes to that.
That's solid advice. Um, I'm going to group a couple of questions in here, and these are more fun questions, I think, but also relevant to all of us who write. Is what do you read for fun, or how do you what do you go to for inspiration, or how do you develop a broader reference library, I guess you could say? What do you find
Mhm.
yourself turning to for inspiration?
Yeah, so I read a lot. Um, Fiction, nonfiction, journalism, magazine, newspaper, and I've been a writer, I guess, ever since I was the high school lit mag editor in 2004. So I have, I think, pretty eclectic writing tastes, and I'm always trying to broaden them, if anything. Um, there's a few things that have always inspired me that I do go back to. I usually have a copy of Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse, not too far. That's one of my favorite books. It's also, you can read it in a day. And I think it's great writing, and mostly it just like kind of, it's just the ideas discussed in there just kind of make me just think more creatively, and that's what it is. I think each person can find, it's not going to be the same creative source for any people. I've also, you can't see it, but like I've brought a bunch of books I've read to the office, not just to look pretentious, but as a good I actually like will go and pull off some of these historical nonfiction books off the shelf sometimes. I think for speechwriters, I think this is one of the best books I've ever read. It's Counselor by Ted Sorensen. He was, I guess my screen is blurred, so I can't show it too well, but he was, okay, there we go. So yeah, Counselor by Ted Sorensen. He was one of Kennedy's closest advisors and his speechwriter. And it's a great book. He's a great writer, and um, and just lots of good advice about speechwriting in here. There's a few others that I think. Let's see. Oh yeah, this one is also, you can probably read in a day. The Speechwriter. It's written by the guy who was the speechwriter for the South Carolina governor, who Mark Sanford, who mysteriously fled to Argentina to be with his mistress and to
Who's the author?
resign in disgrace. Barton Swaim. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his last name right. But it's also just a fun, it's specifically from a governor's office, and anyone who has worked in a governor's office, I think, will enjoy this. Um, And there's, yeah.
We've got another question because I
Mhm.
just want to make sure we get to
Yeah.
it. Sorry, my lights in here keep going up. How has AI impacted your speechwriting process, if at all? And if so, how do you utilize that?
It has not affected my process at all. I have a very low opinion of AI in writing, an extremely low opinion of it. In
That's
fact, I signed up for LinkedIn Premium, and they have this feature that's like, make your post better with AI. And I thought, okay, what is this going to do? And I clicked it, and it didn't change a word. So it was just the same thing. So I mean, I've always been curious about what, like, people who don't have a background in writing, what they think about, and specifically what they can tell the difference, whether it was human or AI written. To me, it's always very obvious, because it will begin with most AI writing, I feel like, is telling you things you already know. Like, the first sentence will be, Moana 2 is a movie, or something like that. And so it's very primitive. I hope it doesn't get better for personal reasons, but yeah, the seeing it deployed so crassly, especially in journalism, where you just see all this, like, AI slop with fake names attached to it and stuff out there. I have a low opinion of it, and I'm pretty concerned about it. But yeah, I haven't used it at all.
interesting.
That's really interesting.
I think
Jacque,
we're just about out of time, aren't we?
yeah, and I have one more question for you, Mike, that I wanted to make sure that we just take a moment to answer if we can. And it's PRSA, Puget Sound chapter. Jacque specifically has been a strong advocate for PRSSA. There are some young folks who are interested in becoming speechwriters or better speechwriters. And there are many folks on this call today who supervise, entry level or early career professionals. What's some advice that you have for and early career professionals who are coming into this field that want to become speechwriters? Maybe they want that to be added to their portfolio. What's
Great
advice
question.
you would give to younger folks today?
That's a hard question, because this role in the governor's office was not historically the speechwriter. What happened was, around the time I came in, the person who had been writing the speeches had taken another job. And when that happened, I said, I'm interested in this. I want to do it. So I wound up doing it. So, my lesson is carpe diem, I guess. I don't know what additional opportunities are out there, but if you're a part of an organization where there is speech writing, the first thing you can do is express interest, and say you want to do it. Read some of these books. Those aren't the only two great books about speech writing. You've got to just use your voice to say, I want to do this. What are my opportunities to do this? Can I help in any way, whether it's writing, fact checking, looking for opportunities, helping with other logistical parts of it, just to get some foot in the process, and maybe that leads to other opportunities.
And be kind to yourself too.
Yeah.
So, well, Mike, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. What a rich program, particularly giving some insights about the governor. I think one of the things that sticks with me is, know your subject and your speaker. The governor was at the Department of Ecology just a couple of days ago to say thank you to the employees here. And he's doing Q&A, and then stops, and in a classic governor moment, kind of the something catches his eye, and he says, "Hey, do you guys have any newts here?" So, well, we have salamanders. He starts talking about salamanders, and somebody says, "No, we got newts. Newts. I want to go see newts. I want to go out in the back of the building and look for newts." So they did. It's knowing who your speaker is, particularly if they are a rich individual. in thought and action like the governor, and they're paired with someone like the talent of Mike Faulk. So thank you so much, Mike, for making this a great professional development opportunity for everybody on the call, many of who are not members of PRSA. We hope you will join. Again, it's a great organization. They've got a membership special on. Gift 24 waives your initiation fee. Thank you so much. And Eric, we will be sending out the recording afterwards, correct?
Correct. In the next couple days, we will take the recording. We'll edit out the first short few minutes that's kind of blank, and we'll put it on our YouTube. All of the attendees will get a link to that YouTube link.
So huge thank you to the Puget Sound chapter for pivoting and making this opportunity on very short notice. So thank you so much. And Mike, just really, really appreciate it, and excited to see where you'll be next.
Yeah, thank you. If anyone has any job leads, reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Take care and happy holidays.